morning everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Hunt for Bronze. This morning's episode, well, today's episode, let's go with that. Today's episode as a whole is, well, a bit of a foot falcon session, a bit of a land-based bash around Brizzy. And honestly, it's to try to catch as many different fish in as many different spots as possible. My aim is to hopefully show you guys how to pick apart some land-based spots if you haven't done it before, or if you're wanting to have a quick session but you can't take the boat, kayak out, or whatever. You don't have access to a boat, kayak. So we're gonna go by foot, hit as many spots as possible using Google Maps, literally just looking for parks next to the water. That's all we'll do. We're starting in the fresh at one of the dams, being North Pine, and we're gonna make our way towards the city to fish the Brizzy River by the end of the day. We're gonna wrap this up probably around lunchtime with hopefully a few fish under our belt of various different sizes. We're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna put you on the chest. Hopefully we can find some. Let's go. Alright, so we're starting this morning with a bit of a 1-2 punch. I've got a spinnerbait to fish over the shallow weed because I'm obviously on the bank. So I'll just fish this over the weed in here. Hopefully there's something up shallow early. And we're just burning it through all this stuff for our best opportunity, hopefully, to catch a fish. Helps that there's a bit of wind blowing up in here as well. So this is not a bad spot here. We got the wind blowing straight up onto this bank. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully that's out wide enough that it can sink into some school of fish. School of fish eats it, I wind in fish, and we've caught a fish here. First spot's a tick. A couple of wind current lines through onto this bank as well, which I like. Definitely don't enjoy fishing deep water as much as I do shallow water, but I guess sometimes you gotta do it. I mean, my thought train on this is that I'm fishing on these points that are windblown and trying to hit where the weed drops off down the bank. And I'm hoping that the bass are kind of on the other side of the drop of the weed. So as I pull this spoon up and over, that's where they are, and they eat. But thus far, that does not prove to be working. Finally, back on the water, back to the water. Tell you what, forgot how much I hated walking through wet grass. Ugh, it's wet. God, wet feet suck. Now the next spot, spoon's out. Gonna catch us a monster. Okay, we got a good wind current line. A bit of a slick out in front of me there. Hopefully I've cast past the weeds enough. It'll sink down. There's a bit of a current line. There's fish sitting in there and all that good stuff. Bit of sun on the water now, so a bit of warmth for them. That's a fish. There we go. Oh, we're off. You're kidding. You're kidding me. Bugger. I just lost my opportunity. My one shot, my one opportunity. More of that slick out in front of us. It's a current line, we love current lines. Oh, hit, there's a fish, there we go. Now we gotta battle him out of the weed. Oh yes. So much weed. Just gotta high stick him almost to get him above it all. It's not a bad fish either. Sick. How's that? Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And we got one. We got one. We bloody got one. And it's a good one too. Yes! Yes! Woo! And there's that bass. They ate that Paco spoon. And that is number one fish. And number one species of the day. Pretty happy with that little guy. Solid fight on him. Love him. Love me bass. Alright, we're wrapping up here. Another 6 minutes of fishing, which I'll just do on this side of the point. We got one bass, lost one bass, lost a lure, but it's alright. We ticked off this spot. Probably keys, takeaways from bank fishing a dam is if you got this wind like we do, you'll be very, very much inclined to fish with the wind at your back. It's not necessarily the best thing to do, and I know in this dam it's quite hard to pick where the wind is blowing and blowing onto, but often you want the banks that have the wind blowing across it or onto it. Both those ways, across and on, generally means that there'll be food, bait, all that good stuff there. And that's obviously going to increase your chances at catching a fish. It's hard enough as it is, as you can see from the camera now. It's a big expanse of water, and on the bank you can only fish at most like 40-50 meters off the bank, unless you got a shore casting rod and a big spoon. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to be able to I guess find the fish, because I mean, for all you know, they could be just out of your casting range. They could be on the other bank. They could be moving so quick you just can't get a cast to them. The biggest key is you maximise your chances. So low light conditions normally, first around morning, afternoon. You fish places where you've got wind blowing onto, wind blowing across, current. If you can see birds and bait, go to them. And depending on the dam you're at and the place you're fishing, you use lures that you can cover the most water with. But again, not always the go.
you might find that the bass are sitting in a different dam and they're sitting between the bank and the weed, so you don't have to cast that far. You want something that runs shallow, weedless, or, you know, a shallow diving jerk bait, something that stays out of that weed. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to where you're fishing. Maximize a few things, so structure, wind, bait, birds, and then you just use a lure that you can get into the zone. For me, it was a spoon today. Tomorrow it might be someone with a plastic or a lipless crankbait. So we'll see what happens. That may have actually been a hit there. That was a pretty strong tug. So yeah, we've got about 3-4 minutes to go. I want to cast into this one last current line. Before I go, and then I've got to stroll back to the car and get changed and get fed and all that good stuff before I go to this meeting. So we're now at spot 2 meeting. Went a little bit over time, but that's all right. Into the saltwater. I'm gonna go the old 1-2 punch with the crankbait and soft plastic, and we're gonna see how we go. Got a good bit of bank up here. I can fish in and out kind of on one of the many creeks that come off the Brisbane River. Just kind of found a spot on Google Maps on a park. Spent ages trying to get a park, and finally someone left and I got one. And yeah, this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna fish under a bridge, then go fish some other gaps and spaces and see how we go. So yeah, if this doesn't work, we'll go on the other side of this creek because there's a couple of spots. Then we'll go somewhere on the Brizzy, and then I've got another meeting. So you know, busy day, but we'll be good. We'll get there, we'll catch some fish, and we'll have fun. Classic urban spot here. As you can see, we got concrete wall. So I'm just putting you on my chest, you might move around. Concrete wall, boat, shade, sick bickies. All right, start with the crank, and then I'll pick up the plastic, swap that plastic out to a lighter plastic, and we'll go from there. But we'll just hit this hull with this crank. Ooh, bit too many wheat bix this morning. Also, you want to be careful on these banks, especially with this concrete. It can be quite slippery. So yeah, don't go down too far where it's wet. And you can fish the whole wall as well. So I'll go fish that first pylon with this crank. A little outflow pipe here, that's also, you can also hold fish. Backside of this boat. Oh.
Eventually.
There's a fish. It's a little flathead. Oh, wow. It's taken me too long to get that tiny flathead. But, I mean, I guess we ticked off catching a fish. That's him. What is that? What is it? Ah. Alright, there we go guys, another episode of the Hunt for Ron's done and dusted. Yes, I'm in the car driving home and I need to get to another appointment, which unfortunately has eaten up a lot of today. But what I was trying to do was to show you with a little bit of time you can go out and catch some fish land-based. Now, it worked first thing this morning. I had about 2 hours. Found the fish at North Pine Dam, casting a spoon, covering lots of water. And I went through in detail how I did that. Then, after my morning appointment, I kind of went out and I tried fishing the saltwater. I may have got the tides a little bit wrong. And look, to be honest, I didn't pick the most productive areas. I picked one area which was probably too small of an area to break down properly and allow me to cover as much water as possible. So I really failed there to utilize Google Maps to the best of its ability to isolate those areas where I can jump and spot hop 4, 5, 6 times in the space of, you know, 5-minute drive each. Instead, I put myself in a position where my spot hopping was really narrowed down to a little creek, and it's not the most accessible multi-area spot, which is really important when it comes to land-based saltwater big river fishing. I've done it in Sydney Harbour a heap, and you can see the link to that land-based, I think it's a land-based flathead video of everything, but it goes through how I utilize, I'm pretty sure it's been a while since I've seen that, even looked at that episode, but essentially it looks at, you know, hopping to multiple little spots, land-based, in a big city where you can go, yep, fish a stretch of 100 meters, but quickly do it, you know, cast plastics, work it, and then move on. Instead, I stuck at kind of 2 spots for an hour and a half, which I know is not good juju. If you're not getting fish at spots, move on. You got to be willing and comfortable to move to heaps of different spots to try to find where those fish are, which is what I didn't do. So I hope this provided some insight for you guys. If you are trying to work out how you go about land-based fishing and breaking it down, biggest thing is you go on Google Maps. If you're fishing a river, you look where tide and current's going to hit. You look where you can jump to multiple places. You look for places that are remote. If you are maybe not in a capital city, or you're driving and chasing bass, trout, redfin, whatever in the fresh, look for those more remote, harder to reach places. If you're in a city in saltwater, you're going to get brim, flathead, whiting, all that stuff, all the good stuff in easy access spots. But what you really need to do, which as I said I didn't do, is look for lots of spots close together. Lots of spots close together lets you fish for 10 minutes. If you don't get anything, move on. It lets you cut out a lot of unproductive water really quickly. So that's it. I hope you guys learned something. If you haven't done so, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. That's all I got. Until next time, guys, go out fishing, enjoy yourselves, and we out.